And good evening. It is another Biddle. This is a high rent Biddle number 4 on the real stream. So welcome all. Today we're set out to have a tech around the virtual water cooler. Anything that is Linux, tech, and open source related is on the table for discussion. I do have some things in the docket for you, ready to go. But first I want to thank Rocco for starting the Biddle community, where I truly felt like a member of the nicest group of people, except for maybe Vince. And so uplifting and encouraging of phenomenal skills and abilities in a whole range of levels. So welcome. Glad he could be here.
I see that my reputation precedes me.
Well, I meant that in the nicest possible way.
Oh, goodness.
And so got Eris, Thomas is here, Big Pod, Vince, Chris, Fedora Man himself, Jinda, Jason, Wendy, my fellow co-host from DLN Extend, and she's also in Hardware Addicts. And what else are you doing over there?
Just those two for
Okay.
right now, but I am still working on Camera Corner. I'm getting there. We're getting there.
Excellent. I'm excited for that. And then Joe, our resident non-Linux user, and Tyler. I don't know which Tyler this is. Is it the Tyler I know? I've known. The I guess he'll let me know if he knows. So does anybody have anything exciting in Linux or open source or gaming or anything tech related they've been doing that they want to kick us off with? If not, we're gonna go right into the hardware.
Well, I've been rereading the C programming book.
Oh,
and
what are you gonna program me?
And just going through to sharpen up my my C skills, because it's been probably close to 10 years since I've done any kind of software development, and I'm just finding that I'm having a blast on it, doing the exercises and relearning the language for development, and I'm just finding that I'm having a blast on it, doing the exercise.
Yep, and this is what I'm doing.
CCNA?
CCNA. I've been studying, you get my little tabs going crazy over here already. Been studying that, more of just for the knowledge. I'm still not 100% sure if I'm going to go for the cert or not. But I definitely, I'm a nerd, so I just want to learn about these stuff. So I'm going to go through this book, and then they have the second book. They have 2 books for the CCNA test. I'm going to go through both of those, and then, somewhere down the road, may take the cert. Got to get the money first, because it's a pretty expensive one. I think it's like a $1,000 cert or something like that. I can't remember the pricing.
For the CCIE it is, but for CCNA, I think it's two $100 tests. So.
Well, I'll look into it when that time comes. I got a ways to go, and just learn going the first few chapters, just the basics, obviously. So I haven't gotten to the advanced stuff yet, or decided what I'm going to buy for make myself a little Cisco lab in my room. But we'll get there.
There is several things out on YouTube. You can take a look. They recommend what equipment to pick up for creating a lab for learning this stuff. The only thing is you get a varying of the
Opinions.
iOS versions. So you might have something with like 11.2 and 12.7 and stuff like that, and some of the commands may or may not be available on one device that might be on another device. So you have to look out for things like that.
Well, cool. I started studying that, the CCNA, in 2008, and then I got about halfway through it, and I said, I don't want to do this.
That's why I'm just doing it for the knowledge right now, not necessarily for the cert. So I'm not putting that kind of pressure on myself that I have to learn in X amount of time and go do a cert or anything like that. I'm taking my time with it just to get the knowledge, just because like I like to learn that stuff. It's pretty much all I do all day after work is I grab a cup of coffee and go read for a while, and then I'll study something, whether something technology related.
That's cool. I'm glad you're doing that.
My undergrad degree is in computer networking, and we went through the entire course for CCNA, and that was part of the requirements. So hey, that worked out pretty good. Well, hey,
Well, excellent.
Todd.
So the thing I guess I want to bring up on Vince, he's really excited about a thing. You have you brought it up right before the show, so I just totally threw the entire schedule out the window to talk about this. Maybe not out the window, but this is kind of what I expect from you, so it's okay.
Sorry, I did that to you.
No, this is good because I did see I didn't catch all of it on This Week in Linux, but Michael was talking about the System 76 keyboard, and I'm glad you brought it up. Now,
Well, I also expect someone from Hardware Addicts to maybe, cover it too
chime
at some
in on it,
point in
yes.
time, right?
I
Right?
think that it's probably going to end up there at some point in time.
Mm-hmm.
We'd have to,
Mm-hmm.
especially after it was brought up here. We've been called out.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I've been a bit of a keyboard nerd maybe the last 12 months or so. It's really a rabbit hole that you can jump into and never climb out of. So I've been following this when they first announced it. I got really excited, and then it's been months since that. It took them a while to really develop it and get it going, but finally it was launched this week. Well, at least you can pre-order. I think that they're shipping in June. The System 76 keyboard. It's called the Launch Keyboard, which is, I think, a pretty good name for it. Use your keyboard to launch things. And it's a keyboard that has seemingly a lot of features. It's made out of aluminium. They mill the aluminium block themselves in their own little factory there in Colorado, I believe. Is that right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like they've also done a lot of development work on it. So with all the keyboards that I've looked at, and especially in the custom mechanical world, a lot of them sort of reuse parts. They reuse PCBs. They reuse a lot of the same sort of switches, but they seem to have gone their own way. They've really gone and chosen a PCB, or maybe even commissioned their own PCB. And the PCB is the actual board in the keyboard that actually your switches plug into, and sends the signals to your computer, right? And these things usually are programmable, so you can customize where your keys are, remap all your keys, whatnot. And it looks like they've actually commissioned their own, because I haven't really seen that PCB anywhere before, especially with their layout. It's very close to a 75% keyboard layout. And for anyone who doesn't know, like if a normal keyboard, say like one of these ones with the numpad, is 100%, 75% cuts out the numpad, cuts out a lot of the navigation keys, something like that. What Jason's maybe holding. So you might have still a home and a end and a page up and a page down, but it keeps all your function keys, keeps all your normal letter keys. So that's pretty handy, and it keeps your arrow keys too, because a lot of other boards, this one that I've also got, this one's a mini one. See that? That's a 60% board, and that cuts out. It doesn't have any arrow keys at all, so you have to get used to using that. And I think it's looking like a really great board. There's been some discussion about its price, I've seen, because it's $285 at launch. But to me, if anyone knows and is into the custom keyboard game, keyboards that of that quality and of that ilk tend to go for a lot more than that. So it's pretty easy to build a custom keyboard north of $300. So them coming in at $285 with decent quality switches and also decent quality PBT keycaps, plus it seems like they're manufacturing their own case, to me sounds a bit fair, pretty fair actually. And I've been discussing with my chief financial officer about maybe purchasing it.
What does she have to say about it?
A guy's got to have his hobbies, right?
That's right.
Yep. Well, you can justify it with her by telling her this is one of the few custom keyboards that actually has a 4-port integrated USB hub.
Yeah, that's one of another selling point as well. It's a USB 3.2, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be mega powerful. And the other thing I might justify it with is she might get a hand-me-down keyboard if I get that other one.
Now, do you think you're going to miss the number pad though?
Yeah, I've debated that a lot in my head especially when I was getting this other one, this mini one here.
Mm-hmm.
It depends really on what you're doing. I know that Tyler also has his keyboards too, loves his keyboards, and he uses a 10 keyless layout. I think was that you, Tyler? No sound, dude.
Can't.
But
Yeah, you have no sound.
yeah, in any
It happens.
case, I think
Okay,
Tyler's
so
posted
hold
also
on.
that. Oh, there you go. Go.
Yep, sorry. It defaulted to my HDMI capture card as my audio input. So,
Well, there you go.
Zoom. Anyway, yes, I have a TKL board, but that doesn't preclude me from having a numpad. I just have a separate one that I keep anywhere on the desk, so I can have the numpad on the left, on the right, pushed away. I don't need it all the time, but when I do, it's right there.
Yep. That's where that hub comes in. That's integrated on the keyboard. So if you get a numpad and you connect it to, it has 2 USB-Cs and 2 Type A's built into the hub, so you can just the numpad right in there.
Yep.
Now, I use for my laptop when I'm like mobile, because I'm mobile a lot right now. I'm not here very much. I have a Bluetooth number keypad, like with some other additional keys on it, and I do like that a lot. So I whip it only when I'm doing like numbery things. So in the United States, April was a special month, and so I used it a lot in April, but I'm not using it a whole lot right now.
Yeah, and that's the same with me. Like I tend not to use it too much most of the time, except when I'm doing spreadsheets and just very quick calculations.
Mm-hmm. Yep, there we go.
Yep, that's Tyler's one.
I like when they have a built-in backspace on the keyboard on the number pad, because that's really handy to have the backspace right there. So when you're doing things, at least I've had to use it many times. So
I mean, if I can get a show of hands, maybe even like who's already got a mechanical keyboard, who's been converted. Yeah, it's I think it's one of those things where until you try it, you might not know what you're missing. Just the way it feels.
I tried them.
No?
I had to go wireless on mine. I tried the wired ones and all that stuff. I don't like wires, other than, I mean, I got the headset here, but other than that, everything in my room is as far as peripherals is wireless. The mice and the keyboards, and I have right now on my desk 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mice, and like 6, 7 keyboards or whatever. Because
I don't move my keyboard around enough to justify going wireless, but wireless mouse, wireless headphones.
Mm-hmm. I haven't got to the wireless headphones yet, as far as because I use these for work, so I don't want wireless there. It's just in case I don't want to be drop out in the middle of fixing somebody's issue. But anywho, yeah. So I mean, everything else is wireless, but I only have the one mechanical that's wireless because they're not exactly cheap for the wireless ones. All the rest of them are just the basic Logitech.
Can't go wireless with buckling spring.
Yeah, that reminds. Why does that remind me of a Commodore 64?
I don't know, but that would make me like a Commodore C16, but that's another conversation.
Or are they compatible with Petticoat 5? That's what I want to
know. Got a USB port on the back for the cable, so I don't think so.
So what'd you say is the standout feature, Vince? Like if you're gonna say like in a marketing, like a single point of what makes this keyboard special, like what?
I completely forgot that it's completely open source.
Okay, I do like that.
Completely forgot to mention that. So that's one of the greatest things about it. A lot of the software you might get for customizing the keyboard, say the lights or the keys, from various manufacturers, proprietary. They've gone and used I think it's QMK is the software that they use, which is open source. They've, as they usually do as well, open sourced the design, so you can actually get the design files online of the keyboard. And if you really want to, I suppose you could make your own. And from what I've read as well, a lot of them there at System 76 are massive keyboard nerds, and
Oh, okay.
they've basically combined their collective keyboard nerdery and selected all the features they want for this keyboard. So that's why I think it's a keyboard for keyboard nerds. And unless you're in that sort of category, it may not be for you because of maybe the price, but I'm excited myself because I've started becoming quite that sort of nerd.
So with their kind of like Captain Planet, with our powers combined, we are Captain Planet. Was it like
Exactly.
similar
Or
kind of
Voltron.
or Voltron? Yep. Like so, it's
Mhm.
the Voltron of keyboards.
Voltron's better than Captain Planet. We'll go with that.
Yeah, whatever.
Hands down, hands down.
Well, unless like Devastator, the Decepticon, that could be your thing too, I suppose. Well, very cool. Does anybody else have any like keyboard thoughts or whatever? I know this also has RGB in it. I saw, right? So it's programmable as far as the RGB, and then
Yep.
like what I wonder is like because I saw something that was at Max Henney said that he gets finger fatigue from using a Cherry MX Blues. I think he said.
Yeah.
So I've never had finger fatigue when typing on any keyboard ever in my life. So what are you doing, Max, that you get finger
So
fatigue?
one of the
If you're
features of-
pretty heavy on a
I'm-
keyboard and you're constantly bottoming out the keys, that can get to the point where you're almost like jamming your fingers all the time. And I
Huh.
know I'm really heavy on a keyboard, so I actually have O-rings underneath all of my keycaps to help prevent finger fatigue.
Really?
So
Kind of has
How-
that extra layer of cushion between the key and bottoming out. Helps
like-
the sound too, because now I'm only getting the click of the blue switches and not the clack of it hitting the case.
Okay.
So something worth noting about the System 76 keyboard is, if I remember correctly, the software should allow me to configure the keyboard mappings of my Lemur Pro because of the open firmware that has.
Yeah, I'm interested in knowing how that would work too. Is that a like a specific firmware driver or a special, like how do you do that? Would it integrate with my Plasma desktop environment, or would I have to use something like would I have to wedge it in somehow?
Usually the customization software is on the hardware level, so it'll write new firmware to the keyboard itself. That's how
Okay.
it usually would work. Just back to with Max Haney's question, a lot of these premium boards now offer a feature where you can swap out the switches pretty easily. You can pull out switches that you don't want and swap in some new ones, and there are just a plethora of different types of switches that you can get. So if blue switches are a little bit too heavy for you, so the feel of them is too heavy, you got to push too hard on them, you can get much lighter ones like red switches, which are much easier on the fingers. So that's another feature that's a premium thing that you can get for these keyboards.
Right.
I pretty much learned on a DEC VT220, and that so that keyboard has always felt good for me, even when they went more mechanical with the 420. But the 220 keyboard, I miss that, and if I could get that reliably working on hooked up with it. PC, I'd probably use that over whatever keyboard is currently installed.
So I'm going to spit some heresy here for a moment. The few times I have ever tinkered with a mechanical keyboard, I didn't care for it all that much. Like, honestly, I can't feel that much of a difference between decent rubber domes. As long as I have a decent amount of travel, I'm happy, honestly. And I know there are going to be people in chat who are angry with me, but you know what?
Is that worth a band hammer? I'm just curious. Is that band hammer?
No.
Pretty close.
No,
I'm
it's
just kidding.
definitely do what works best for you, but my accuracy went up between the dome switches and a mechanical keyboard. And I think some of that is the fact that I have the blue switches, so I've got that audible click that, oh yeah, you've actually pressed the button. But my accuracy personally went up. So it's just whatever keyboard works for you. And now that I've gone mechanical, I can't do another one. I mean, I have some, on like the laptop and whatever, but I'm extremely picky about my keyboards. If I do not like the keyboard, I can't own that laptop.
Yeah, I'm with Wendy on that one. My accuracy went up ever so slightly as well when I would switch to a mechanical keyboard. And I use brown switches because the blues were driving me insane with the noise. Or maybe not me, driving other people insane.
Yes, I would like to have a keyboard with brown switches because especially when I'm doing stuff late at night, I'm so worried that my typing is going to wake up the whole house because they go from being loud to deathly loud.
Yeah, my wired mechanical keyboard is the brown switches. It's the Logitech. I want to say it's a G710, I think it is. Mechanical keyboard, and it has the brown switches on it, and it's amazing. It's not that loud. And this is the Corsair K57, so this is actually dome switches mechanical keyboard. It's the only one. It was the cheapest one I could get for a wireless keyboard that was still had the mechanical feel. And it was, I got it on sale for like $50, so I got a steal on it. But I've been looking into doing the custom keyboard thing, and I just looked at that and looked at my wallet, and I was like, nah, it's not worth it to me for a keyboard. I'm just gonna be typing on it. I don't need a $400 thing sitting in front of me that I'm just to type out, some code or type out, tickets for work or whatever. Just wasn't a justification there for me, price wise.
So I have two keyboards. I started off with a brown MX, and then I got complaints, so now I'm using Silent Reds.
My only issue that I have with the keyboard, like I'm actually really easy as far as keyboards go. I don't notice any improved accuracy on the different keyboards, but I have loss of accuracy on some keyboards. So there's HP ZBooks. There's this one book that I had from my last employer, and I would hit, like I type, and sometimes it wouldn't register the type, which is a problem. And then there's another, I can't remember what it was, but there's another keyboard that like just setting my hands on it would be enough to cause it to switch, like to cause it to activate. And so I would constantly have like mistypes. But for me, I think my tolerance is pretty decent. I actually prefer, maybe I'll ban myself, I actually prefer laptop keyboards because it's less travel. That might be weird, but I just kind of like the keyboard I like the most was on the Dell Latitude before they went that fancy Apple nonsense. The way that Apple has these like chiclet looking keys. I'm talking about the rounded square, then it's kind of pressed through to the grid of the chassis. So before Dell started doing that style of keyboard, I like those the best. Those are probably my favorite. And I generally actually put, it's another slap in the face to the keyboard enthusiasts. I generally put those keyboard protectors on there because I have children, and I want to keep all the grime out of my keys. So, although I couldn't find a keyboard protector for the current laptop that I have, so they're just not allowed to use it at all. I'll give them some other piece of garbage. So, but yeah. I don't know if anybody else. Does anybody else have anything on keyboards that they'd like to bring up? Joe, you haven't said anything about keyboards, and you're more of like a gamepad guy, so it's probably got to be official Nintendo or something like that to make you happy.
If it'll run Linux, no.
Actually. I know Peter or Colin, if you had any thoughts on keyboards.
Yes, as long as the light's on and I can see the letters, I'm happy.
I find that like, what's that, Peter?
When I bought my Filio, I also bought a keyboard as a DAS keyboard. I bought it at the same time, and my first ever mechanical. I'd never used one even before I bought it. And I just love it. I love typing on it. I love the feel. I do feel a difference. I have no idea what's wrong with Thomas's fingers.
Like when I tried it, what difference I was barely able to make out was minimal at best. Yeah. And in a normal day-to-day scenario, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. So I just figured for me, it's not worth it. It's not worth whatever the price hike is from rubber domes. And if they feel otherwise essentially the exact same to me, why bother? I get to some people, they feel massively different, but You know, I hear all the time about how mechanical keyboards feel worlds different, and then I go use it and it feels barely different to me, and I kind of got let down. I feel like, because like I tried blues, I tried browns, I tried reds, all about the same time, and I couldn't feel the difference.
Maybe your next stop needs to be Buckling Spring. Just go full in.
I am willing to give them a try. I will make no guarantees.
I can tell you there's a big difference in the feel of the keyboard typing on the Magic keyboard and a mechanical keyboard. Then you can definitely notice difference.
Now I can feel a difference in a laptop keyboard or something thin like that and what I have here. Because like if I don't have that travel distance, it's trash immediately. Because I type really, really heavily, as I'm sure most people who have been around in this and have heard me typing can attest to. I type very heavily.
Yeah, actually, I thought you would type with crescent wrenches. That's actually what I thought you typed with, like somehow you had on your fingers. That's what it sounds like.
It's the right key.
Well, I agree with Thomas. I also do not feel much difference. I did feel some difference when I was actually paying attention to the keyboard itself and how I was typing. I did feel a bit difference in the key presses, and that's about it in the feeling. And when I tried side by side and was actually focusing on the on screen and on whether it was gameplay or typing in, I didn't feel difference at all. So my 15 euro Logitech keyboard worked just fine.
Well, good. I'm glad it does.
While we're on the subject of keyboards, can I give a shout out to a fantastic snap package called Hushboard?
Sure.
What it does
what does it do?
When you have that key press instance, it mutes your microphone. Each time you press a key, it mutes your microphone.
Well, that's interesting.
I think the idea came from either Wimpy or Popey, and Stuart Langridge actually put it together.
That's pretty awesome.
And it works wonders. It's an amazing snap.
That's interesting. That's very cool. You can never underestimate the ingenuity of nerds. That's for sure.
Right.
So we have a couple people hopped on the chat. So we have, or on the Zoom call, we have Adam Grubbs and also Steve's very own, the friendliest face on all of the internet. The not most.
Oh, are you looking in the mirror again?
The least punchable face in all the internet is Steve.
Could have fooled me.
Shut up, Georgia boy.
Oh.
Fighting words. How's everybody
I guess.
doing?
Wonderful. Glad you made it. I know, Adam, do you have a say in the? Because I know you're a gamer, so I don't know if like keyboard gaming is a thing that you do, and you have to have a certain kind of keyboard laid out a certain way.
Gaming definitely. You have to have a decent keyboard. I've had mechanical keyboards for PCs for like, I don't know, almost a decade now. But I never go after like the premium, like ridiculous ones. I always just buy like, hey, Razer made this. It doesn't suck. Let's grab this kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I can definitely feel the difference between a rubber dome and a mechanical keyboard. But I've developed kind of RSI and stuff in my hands. So small, low-profile keyboards like the Magic keyboard that Jason was showing are much easier for my hands to deal with than a mechanical keyboard.
So is that because
the idea of like finger fatigue is definitely a thing for me, because like the long travel means like my joints are moving a lot more, which means my muscles are moving a lot more, and I find that just tires my hands out. I start getting cramps and stuff too quickly.
Maybe you need to drink water and do some stretches before you type. Then, Adam.
I do stretches every day actually for my RSI.
Oh really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, now I feel like a jerk.
Otherwise, it's absolutely painful to use a computer.
You know, I had an issue. I don't know what it was. I never went to a doctor about it, but I had I was doing. This is several years ago, like 18 or so. I re-roofed my parents' house, and my dad wanted it done not with a nailer but with a hammer because he thought it made a better product, and I just complied because he's older than I am. Of course he knows, right? And I was working a CAD job where I was doing design work, and I would have like the next day I would have such like incredible numbness and weird pain in my hands from hammering for so many hours out of the day. And to which then I realized I'm kind of a big wimp compared to him, because he could just go at at like 60 years old or 50 something years old, he could go all day swinging a hammer, and he never complained. I did, but he didn't.
Also, I do
Wow.
appreciate your army advice of just drink water.
Yeah, I was hoping that you'd pick up on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Change your socks. That'll help too.
Yeah, yeah.
So that'll help your RSI.
What happens when you don't wear socks?
Change them anyway. I don't know, because that's
Blisters?
you know, yeah, blisters. Well, because typically in uniform you have boots and boot socks. So
Right.
you basically had two. There are three remedies for all things in the army. Number one is drink water. Number two is change your socks, and number three is 800 milligram ibuprofen. And if that doesn't fix it, then you're imagining whatever's going on, or you're dead. So that's just kind of how it is. So Steve, I don't know if you're a keyboard aficionado or if you are just you just use whatever's in front of you. I don't know if you have an opinion on the
Well, it's
mechanical
got pretty
keyboard.
lights on it. That's
Okay, so pretty lights.
no,
Pretty
it
lights
has to
makes-
be. I don't care mechanical. I mean, I don't do a ton of typing, so it's not a big issue. But I do need, because of the old eyes, I need the bigger letters and a little bit of keyboard. So I got. It was basically an inexpensive gamer keyboard, because it had the rainbow of lights, which is nicer because I don't turn the lights on at night if I'm on there, so that's nice. So I don't fortunately don't have what Adam has and that, and I don't get fatigued. You don't get fatigued when you're doing like this. So
you hunt and peck? Is that your
a bit, yeah.
Yeah. I've not been able to really get faster than like 50 words per minute, but then my accuracy drops after about 40. It seems like so. I'm not the best typer.
Way back in high school, I took 2 years of typing to be near the girls because a
Oh,
couple of those guys
okay.
did that.
I
Didn't
see.
do anything, but I think I got up to about 44 words a minute at that time. But that
That-
was a few years ago.
Now, did you have the kind of typewriter that had the arms that slapped, or did you have like the ball that rotated and hit it?
Let's see. It was the arms that slapped. My dad's. I used to do a lot of I used to do stories and stuff like that.
Oh, really?
A lot of typing, and he had. It was a portable typewriter because it would go into a nice little case, and I can't remember which letters, but there was always certain letters that didn't type out right, like one of those mystery movies, like a typewriter with a bad letter on it, and that. But that's kind of where I learned kind of how to type.
So these stories that you wrote, I'm kind of stuck on that right now. Would you ever consider either reading one of your stories either on Biddle or possibly on your stream in the morning?
Oh my God, no! They're long gone, long gone.
I don't believe you.
'cause that was quite a while ago.
I think they're in your nightstand next to your bed, and you read them. You're still editing them.
Yeah.
Time to make up some new stories then.
Yep, I think so too. I didn't know they had this creative streak in you like that. That's interesting. So
My son picked it up though. He is a typing fool. He is working on a script, a Wonder Woman anime script, and he's already like on episode 3009 or something like that.
Oh, nice.
But he is. Either he's typing on a computer or he's on his phone, but he's typing stuff. He's not like playing games or that. He's doing scripts. Basically, he's typing out scripts is what he's doing.
Is he going to try and submit them as story ideas for like any of the movie houses?
Would hope he might try something like that one day. But he's going to he's taking school for animation and maybe some kind of not art design, but
Graphic
it's over to
design?
and because he's been using Maya for 3D rendering and that he's been being taught. His hope is to be a game designer or something like that one of these days. But he's got all these characters from every aspect of every cartoon He's got Scooby-Doo joining in. He's got Tom and Jerry joining in. He's got
Ooh, in the frying pan.
Sonic
That'll
the
show 'em.
Hedgehog, and yeah, it's like I hope you got some money for the grease palms, you know. Oh, I done that. I think they'll think it's a good idea. They might, but he's
Gotta
real.
follow
He
your
is really
dreams.
creative.
That's cool. That's very cool. Did anybody else have anything else on keyboards? I like the backlit. I think once I got a backlit keyboard, I didn't want to go back to a non-backlit. I think that's a huge thing. I don't need the rainbow vomit as long as they have white or blue or whatever.
That's what sucks about Windows 10 on his. He's got it's probably about a 10-year-old now. He's got an Asus G73 Republica Gamer laptop, and the new version of Windows 10 kills the backlit keyboards. And there is, with one of the older versions of Windows 10, I was able to actually download the Windows 7 driver for it from Asus, and it would work. And the last time when I updated his computer and I tried to do that, it actually corrupted some stuff, and I had to reinstall Windows again. So, and he's got, it's, totally black keyboard with, a little bit of white lettering on it. So without the backlit, it really sucks, but there's,
I'm surprised there's not that the hardware doesn't override Windows 10. That's interesting.
No, you put Linux on it and the keyboards work. So backlit works.
Well, it's Linux,
Yeah.
So Nate, some of us in the chat have been talking about mice as well, ergonomic mice.
Okay,
I use
yeah.
a Logitech, which is very, very ergonomic.
Okay.
Ron in the chat talked about his daughter using one from Evolent, which is like a sideways mouse, vertical mouse, for those who stop twisting their hands.
Yeah,
It's really nice if you have wrist pain, because I was using a vertical mouse for a while because my wrist was bothering me really bad, and it made a huge difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, those mice that are very big, they keep your wrist in a more natural position because it's not natural for you to like twist it so that you can pick it up. That's why it's better for your hand.
About the 3D connection mouse, the hockey puck or the space ball.
I never got along with any of those.
3D rendering.
Yeah, I had it was like a space ball for doing CAD stuff, and some CAD guys I really like it because you it's you twist it, you have all these different and my wrist is popping as I'm doing that. That's great. Now it's getting all my wrist is self-conscious now. But anyway, it has so you pull up or push down to zoom in and out and everything. I could not get along with that at all. It did not work with me, and I don't know.
Every day. Yeah, I use a mouse. It's a brand I never heard of before. I just gave it a shot to get it. It's called UTech, and it's a nice little. It does have all the pretty colors. I can make it do the vomit if I want to, and it's got it's a gaming mouse. It's got all the buttons on the side for you can set up macros and stuff. But I don't game. I just wanted it because it's a higher mouse. It's got a lot more thickness to it, so it's not like a little mouse. So it fits better in the palm of the hand, and it takes less movement to do stuff. I move it just with the way it sits in my hand. I can just move with my 2 fingers, and it doesn't hurt my wrist at all.
Yeah, I had a CAD mouse that I used. It was like a Logitech something MX. I can't Performance MX or something like that.
MX Master.
Sure.
That's what I use.
And it has a rest for your thumb, and that's probably my favorite. It's in my bag. Like when I'm sitting when I'm standing at this station, I just use a wired mouse. This one's a Dell. It's fine. I have this another portable mouse. I think it's terrible. I don't know. I was looking for it, but it has, instead of a scroll wheel, it has like a touchpad. Oh wow, that's an impressive mouse there, Wendy. It looks like a weapon.
Oh, nice.
Like a mace or something. Swing that sucker around. Yeah, kind of like what Tyler has right there. It looks something like that. But anyway, I like a little bit heavier mouse, I find. I don't like the light ones. And I'm not sure why that is. I don't know if it's my fine motor movement skills are starting to wane. Could be, getting old.
I got the Logitech G604, so it's got the buttons on the side that I want. It's got the free scroll, so I could let that loose, and it just
Yep.
scrolls freely. And although I have to program it on Windows, it saves it to the mouse, so all the macros I program are usable on any operating system.
Really?
Nice.
Yep.
So
That's
you
why I
can't
went for
use
the G
Piper
series.
with yours, because I can on Linux program my mouse with Piper.
I've not had luck with Piper, but like I said, because
Bummer.
it saves it on the mouse, I don't really care.
You're good to go.
Yeah.
I love this mouse. It's the Magic Mouse. I love it because it is basically one big touchpad. And do all the stuff you need to do with gestures with your fingers. You scroll
Interesting.
with it like that, with your finger and all that stuff. Because no scroll or anything like that. It's all done by touch.
Doesn't that have this horrible charging port?
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to ask the same thing.
The beautiful thing about that is, yes, the charging port's on the bottom, but the charge lasts forever. I've had this mouse going on probably almost a year and a half now, and I've only charged it twice.
Wow.
Wow.
That's impressive.
I mean, the battery life in this thing is phenomenal. I use it. I mean, it's set up with my Mac, so I use it just solely on the Mac. But the battery life is phenomenal. And I've sometimes even left it on, turned on, and just sitting there for a couple of days, come back, and still, the charge is beautiful.
How do you right click and middle click on that with that mouse?
It does have the clicking part of it. So you can click on to one edge, one side to the other, to get the click gestures or whatever you want to call them. But if you want to scroll between workspaces, you just use two fingers and slide back and forth. Check the different workspaces. You want to scroll on the web page, just go up and down.
Can you middle click?
I imagine there's probably a gesture for that, but I don't really need it for a Mac. There's no real need for middle click on a Mac.
The middle finger gesture.
That's called the New York salute.
Well, I have this piece of, let's just say, not for good use, cheap mouse from Logitech that is, I believe, 20 euros, and it's wireless, and that's because I'm cheap / have no money.
Yeah,
that's fair.
I have the cheap ones too. Big Podsy. I got the cheap old Logitech one right there as well. It works when it wants to.
This is M185.
Yep, same one. This one is M185. I have two of these. They came with as a kit with the wireless keyboard, and the mouse works fine. The mouse is beautiful.
Yeah.
Keyboards don't like to stay connected.
I have 4 somewhere, and if something on this one breaks, I remember the old one, the right click stopped working because there was, I think the on inside what presses split broke a bit. What I did, I just replaced the top, and that was it.
Yeah, I've got the mice for days. I've got here's three different versions of Logitech mice that are wireless. I've got
You got the unified drivers running?
Well, I don't use these are for different machines. The one that I use on my Linux machine is the UTech. So these ones are all for what you call it. This one's Bluetooth, by the way. This one uses Bluetooth to connect. Not a dongle, but directly to Bluetooth. And these ones are all for my my server, my Windows system, my I have cloud ready, basically almost like a Google but type system. I got computers everywhere in here.
Mine's an M310. It just does what I need it to, so nothing special about it.
Does
But I
it
like
scroll?
Yeah, and another one of those cheap Logitech mice.
It's kind of like
for several years, and it works for the most part, but I like it.
It's kind of like the Ford Escort.
A serial mouse.
A serial mouse? I do in a box. I have not had a need for one since my 286. So.
How would you identify that on a Linux system as serial
0?
Yeah, I don't know how that'll work. I'm sure it'll work. Because why not? I was going to ask, and I totally lost my train of thought. about mice. Oh well, it happens. Well, if there's a
I have a
question in
comment.
the, go ahead.
Just real quickly, just with the talk of mice, it's triggering me a little bit, and maybe Colin too, just with us guys down under, because we're in the middle of a mouse plague. So that's a thing.
So should we call it something else?
Especially with Jason and all his mice.
Well, see,
It's
I had
a
the
thing
cats.
here too, but it's because I
device.
live in the middle of a whole bunch of different farms, so
Yeah.
we have
See,
to regularly take care of that. And then the kids will drop hay because we have 3 guinea pigs, so they'll drop hay and feed the mice in the house. Yeah,
See,
it's an
Colin's got a
ongoing
mouse
battle.
plague.
Yeah. Well, see, I
Yes.
had the cats, so take care of my if the mouse plague for me. I have 6 cats, so I'm good now. I'm protected.
Yeah.
I had a mouse in my house for the first time last year, and like since I've lived here. And I'm in my basement, and I see a mouse. Hopefully, no one that's interested in this house is listening. Walking across, and I'm like, "What is this?" And so I got some mouse traps and got him.
Computer mice are awesome. The little mice that destroy my house
Rodents,
and
yeah.
empty an entire bag of cat food under my washing machine before the guy comes to fix it. Not so awesome. Yeah.
Since Rocco's not here, I'll mention please use single click, save the mice.
Good point. That's probably not something that we're going to use down under though, because they're having a mouse plague. All right. Well, excellent. Well, I'm glad that was. I like this kind of hardware talk. It's a little things. What we interface with our computers all the time, the mouse and the keyboard, and it's ubiquitous. Unless I guess you're using a tablet or phone, then I don't know how to help you. But yeah, it's interesting. So System 76, their new keyboard. Who's actually gonna buy that? Like when it's available, is anyone here gonna jump out and buy that one?
Not for
No?
that price. Nope.
I'm thinking about it.
Okay, so we got a thinking about it, and then Jinda said yes. No, Jinda said no. He said yes. Oh, yes, he said no. What?
No, I'm not gonna get it. Sorry, guys. I type maybe 1 word or 2 words an hour on my speed.
Yeah. Well, there we go. So it's probably
tempting,
not as critical.
But I just bought a keyboard and I got it last month, so I don't think I need any more keyboards right now.
I would love a new one. It'd be really cool to have it, but I also need to convince my husband that I need another keyboard.
And you already type loud enough and keep the whole house up, so I don't think he's going to approve.
Be like, see, this one's better. I can use it when you're sleeping so you don't hear it. It'll be awesome. Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, that's you got to do. You have to sell it like that. How getting that keyboard helps him. Your
So
life
that's
will be
why
better.
We
Yeah.
absolutely have to cover it on Hardware Addict so I can talk about how wonderful it is and that I need one because he listens to the shows and that'll like get me into getting the
But
keyboard
here's an
without
idea.
me saying anything.
Tell him you need one for Hardware Addict so that you can test it and have the knowledge you need to actually be able to talk about it on the show.
There we go. It's content. It's work. I have to. It pains
Right.
me, but I have to.
Right. It's necessary for you to continue to provide for the family that you need to have that keyboard. I will say, I personally like the look of it. I like the I like the concept. I like all that goes around with as far as it being an open source keyboard. It's relatively locally where it's made. The fact that it's I think the switches are replaceable, right? Is that my understanding in it? So it's a very I feel like it's a keyboard for for the keyboard nerd, and I do like that. But I don't know that it would fit in anywhere in my little my workflow as far as how I'm using my computers right now. But it is a very tempting device, I will say for sure. All right, so there's some distro news. A couple of distros have been released. I don't think we have any BSD fans here. Wait, no, Peter, you're a BSD guy now, aren't you?
Well, investigating, learning.
Okay, so are you watching very closely the releases of new BSDs? Because I omitted
I got
those.
the latest 13.
Okay, but so Bodhi Linux. I thought Bodhi Linux had been no more. that it kind of sort of fizzled out. I was way wrong. There's a new Bodhi Linux out. Has anybody? If Steve Moes was here, I would ask him if he's using it because he was a big fan of that. But version 6.0.0 came out, and it's based on Ubuntu, the last LTS, 2004. So does anybody has anybody here used Bodhi Linux before?
A while back I did.
Yeah.
Is it E17 they use?
I don't know.
They ported that to a Mashka desktop.
Okay. So I don't know if anyone is following that at all, but for those that like to test out a distro, I actually liked Bodhi last time I tried it. I thought it was neat. I liked the little animations and how they put like these little touches here and there to kind of like it's like they concentrated on desktop smiles, and so I appreciated that about Bodhi Linux, and where I even took the time to capture the animations to write an article on it because I thought it was such a neat how they did a lot of the little desktop effects. So anyway, so if you're interested, check out Bodhi Linux. It says it's fork of the Enlightenment. Yeah, Mashka Desktop, which is a fork of the Enlightenment user interface. So, but it has numerous improvements and new features added, which you never actually read. We have removed improvements. You never see that, so that's good. It has a new Plymouth theme, and they've improved support for non-English languages. So as a result, they now install the GNOME language tool. So anyway, if you're interested in that, I'll give you a link in the.
I already got the link dropped in there for you.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks. I appreciate that. And then something else that is other distro news. UbiPorts, they released 1604 OTA 17. Has anyone here has used UbiPorts? I was using it on my Pine phone until I put OpenSUSE on it. Because why not? So, but I think Ubuntu Touch is great, or UbiPorts. But does anyone here, have they used UbiPorts? Do they know what it is? It's a fork. I guess maybe it's the carry-on, the successor to Ubuntu Touch. So now has support for NFC hardware. So most of the devices running with Android 9 hardware compatibility, including the Pixel 3a, the Volaphone. NFC support now gives the app developers the ability to read and write NFC tags, or even to communicate with another device using the protocol. Now, I think that's very cool. I've never actually used NFC ever on anything ever. Has anyone here used the NFC? Is that a feature that people care about? Thomas, what do you use it for? Buying your lattes?
So I use it for a small variety of things.
Okay.
I have used it to transfer data between phones a couple times.
Okay.
But I don't do that often because NFC is much slower than Bluetooth, and Bluetooth itself is very slow. Other than that, I use the paying capability as a backup in case I don't have my debit card, because then I can just take my phone, tap it, pay, good to go.
Gotcha.
I've used it for a handful of other things before, but normally I just leave it turned off because it can suck up battery. And if you use it to pay like I do, it could potentially be a security issue in the right situation. So I only turn it on when I'm actually going to pay for something.
Now, I've had phones with NFC on it, but I've always disabled it because I have a smart card that has NFC in it. And so when I would have I had like a wallet thing on the back of my phone, so it's one device to lose to like make my entire day bad. This way, instead of losing one of two that I could lose, I just want to lose one. Anyway, every time I put the card in there, it would like make sounds because it was constantly reading it. So the Android would like make these like chirping sounds. So I shut it off and I never turn it back on. Anybody else here use NFC or think that's NFC tags are a super important thing? Big pod.
Well, when I bought my Galaxy Note, whatever this version of it is, I never set it up again. Back from when I had Note 4, I had it set up, but and it worked fine as long as it knew which account to pull from. But sometimes it got confused, and it would all of a sudden something would fail because it didn't have the right security on that account. But I haven't ever since with the new phone. I haven't had set it back up.
All right, Jinda, I apologize. I missed your hand being up. You should just interrupt because I'm a little bit oblivious sometimes. I got to get used to this hand thing.
No, I had more of a question. That's why I was
Okay.
willing to wait.
Okay.
I decided to do and try out Fedora.
Okay.
And I did XFCE, and I wasn't really happy with it. It crashed a couple of times. The DNF Dragon Nora installer, I think, stands for did not finish.
Could be.
Yeah.
DNF.
DNF. Yeah, did not finish. Yeah, it didn't finish. Did anybody else try Fedora, or is it because I tried the XFC edition and GNOME runs better?
I'm running. Go ahead.
So going back to the NFC thing, I frequently use NFC for Google Pay, so it is a must-have feature on a phone for me. And I've frequently used it more in the last year to avoid touching payment terminals or any of that because, everything's, we got to make sure everything's really sanitized and make sure we're not touching things we shouldn't be if we don't have to. So if I can use the NFC to not have to touch a payment terminal, I will.
Yep. And as far as that Fedora thing goes, I actually downloaded it on a week ago, basically on my Dell laptop to give it a try. I did the Fedora XFCE as well, and yeah, I've had some few bug issues. It hasn't crashed yet, but it just seemed like something wasn't running right. Especially when I was trying to do updates and stuff using the do not finish. They seemed to fail. They wouldn't go through all the way, hence the do not finish. And then I would close it out, the terminal out, go back in, try it again, and still wouldn't work. So then I went through the software updater, did it that way, and then that was okay. Then I went back through to the terminal, and it seemed to work after that. For whatever reason, it had to pick up some file somewhere out of the software instead of the terminal, off the software center thingamajiggy instead of the actual terminal. I don't know. It was weird. So I don't think that Fedora is going to be long on that laptop.
Okay, so it's the exact same.
Well, I use Fedora as my daily driver, and I upgraded from 33 to 34. And I put a whole log of it on Telegram. I was having problems with the with one of the packages wouldn't update, and using the erasing switch took care of that. But the other thing was IP packet, and that was because of one of the options I always did -B, which was select the nearest mirror to you, which you don't really need to specify because it's done anyway. And so once I took that switch out of there, or took that option out and used the allow erasing, everything worked great, and I haven't had a problem with it since. So, yeah.
So
I'm using Cinnamon for the desktop.
Go ahead, Tyler.
So I've been using Fedora as a daily driver on my desktop since Fedora 32. I went through the upgrade process to Fedora 33 just fine last year. I'm holding off on Fedora 34 because there are some things with PopShell that are still iffy on GNOME 40, and I don't know how long it's going to take for those to get resolved because the focus right now is on making sure everything's good for the Cosmic desktop on 2104 that's going to be released next month. And that's still using GNOME 3.38 because upstream Ubuntu stuck with 3.38. So for the foreseeable future, I'm sticking with Fedora 33 on the desktop. On the Galago, I did the upgrade from Fedora 33 to Fedora 34 KDE. And that went pretty smoothly. Only a couple of third-party things broke. But Fedora KDE on 34 is solid. as far as software upgrades, doing those through GNOME software, and this might sound blasphemous here, but Discover worked just fine.
Yeah, I did Fedora. Well, actually, I haven't done 34 yet, but Fedora Plasma has always been rock solid for me. But I haven't tried the XFCE on Fedora. I wonder if it's an XFCE issue or if it's a Fedora issue. I wonder. Now, were those
so
those
far,
clean
so
installs?
far for this little thing, it sounds like a XFCE issue.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Were those
and it
clean
might be,
installs or upgrades?
And it might be DNF Dragora, which I don't really touch because I'm either using GNOME software, Discover if I'm on Plasma, or I'm just going to the terminal and using DNF directly.
I feel a lot better because I had the exact same problems as Jason did. Now I know I didn't do something stupid.
Unless we both did something stupid.
Well, yeah, but
So-
I was sitting there playing with it, and I'm like, going, "What the heck is this thing doing?" And it just didn't work.
I will say, anytime I've tried to play with DNF Dragora, it's not behaved the best.
Okay.
So, like I said, I always stick with GNOME software, Discover, or using DNF directly. Those are the three things I usually do. But for XFCE, your best option is just directly using DNF in the terminal, I guess.
Yeah, and if even if you have to do RPM, clean up a package or something like that, but that's very, very seldom that I actually have to directly interact with RPM. DNF is on the command line is mostly the way I work.
Yeah,
Thanks,
I've actually been pretty impressed with DNF as of late. But I didn't use Dragora very much. The GUI. I'm more of a zipper guy, and that's never failed me. So, well, cool. I'm glad you shared that on Jinda. I know there's been expanded support on Fedora for I think ARM-based systems. I think they're working on more Raspberry Pi support as of late. I don't know, is anybody, Chris or maybe Tyler, maybe they have better news on that.
I have yet to play with any of the Fedora Raspberry Pi images, but I definitely will make a note of that and try it on a future stream of mine.
Cool. Yeah, I'd like to.
Thrown Fedora on there yet, so I'm still using Debian for on the Pi 3. I'm looking to get a set of Pi 4s and put them do a whatever the current term for Beowulf is,
Cluster. There's the cluster computer. Should do it out a bunch of 486s just for fun. So I'm sure you can get those for cheap. Maybe Pentiums now.
I have the Raspberry Pi 4 as well, and then I have so many of these little micro SD cards with different OSs and stuff to play around with, different projects and stuff. I've got a problem.
No, I don't think it's a problem. I think it's a solution. I do have I have a collection of SD cards, and I need to get a case to put them in because I've been playing with my Pi very much. I will say the Pi 4 is an impressive little piece of machinery. It can do a lot, and it's it runs off of a cell phone charger. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I've been enjoying it. One of the projects I want to do is I want to get, I can't remember, was it Octopi? No, it's not Octopi. I can't remember the name of it. It's the one that's for 3D printing.
I think it's Octopi.
Is it Octopi?
I think so.
It's Octopi.
It could be. I'll have to relook it up, but that's one of the things I want to do. I want to get a 3D printer. Probably can get one of those at some point in time just to tinker with, and probably set it up like when there's blank space of desk here and Raspberry Pi's right there. Get it all hooked up, and then just something else to tinker with. Gotta have tinkers.
I have this idea for a Pi, but I don't have it near. I don't know how I would accomplish it, but I'm not smart enough. But it'd be fun to like shove a Pi in like an older computer, like I was looking at both Commodore 64 and like Amiga computers, because they have the ability to interface with other, like for emulation purposes, like to directly access basically the bus for video output and whatnot. I'm sure there's some projects out there that do this already, but there was in the 90s for the big box Amigas, there's a Bridgeboard card. I don't know if maybe Explorer can testify this. I wish he was on here right now, but you could pop in like based on the when. But I think the biggest I ever saw was like a Pentium Bridgeboard card. So the Amiga would be a PC and an Amiga, but all ran on the Amiga OS. And I thought it was just absolutely a phenomenal thing.
I've read about them.
So I wonder if that could be done, but re-implemented with like a Raspberry Pi 4.
I think there is an option for that.
For the Amiga?
Already.
Could
I
be.
don't know. I know for some old computer, I know that somebody did it with the Raspberry Pi compute module.
Because it would be, I think it'd be pretty cool. People have using like Raspberry Pis for like doing HDMI out, like they pop it into like one of the sockets of like the Denise chip, and they can get HDMI out then that way as opposed to going through the whatever the RGB thing is. But it'd be neat to see if there was some way to use for it to harness the power of the Pi or something like that. But anyway, I'm noodling that around. Just thought about it. Anyway, Pis are fun.
I always thought it'd be cool to come up with a teleconference system for it. Something you just plug into a television, hook up some mics and connections, and there you go. Now you have your teleconference.
Yeah, there's so much so many little things you can do with the Pi. They are amazing little computers, especially for the price. The price is very, very good for what you get.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, was it $70 for a Pi 4 with 8 gigs? I think is what I spent. Maybe it was less than that. Maybe it was 50, 60. I remember.
It was my first one, so I got the whole kit. With the came with the 128 gigabyte micro SD. Came with the power switch. Came with an aluminum passive cooling case. And I think for the whole kit was probably around 130 probably, which wasn't.
That was off of Amazon or?
Yeah, off of Amazon. It's a Cano kit.
Yeah, I got the Flirk case, and then I was browsing eBay today, and I saw there was some Pi 4 case that it has a fan inside of it, and then you plug the a board into the side of it that gives you regular HDMI outputs. It relocates your power port and the audio port, and has it looks like a nice, like it could be a nice set top box or whatever. And I thought, and it also exposes the I/O ports in the top as well. And I thought, dang, that's a really cool case.
There are some of those around.
Yeah. So I know people are watching the what's new in software. Anyone here use Parted Magic? Is that anything anyone's ever used? No, I'm not getting a whole lot of nothings here, but it's it's just another like partitioning hard drives like Gparted. But it offers other things like test disk, F disk, and SF disk to like rescue and restore your hard drives or partitions or whatever. Has anybody here ever blown away, like screwed up the partition table and wished they could get it back? Yeah, has anyone ever successfully got it back? Jinda, you did? Steve, no, maybe, kind of?
Yeah,
sorta?
I got it back. I did it for fun. I just took an old flash drive and started doing stuff to it to see if I could actually get it back, and I actually did.
What did you do to get it back?
Different ways, but I don't remember which ones. I don't remember. I know they all worked, but I don't remember which ones they were. The way I did it.
I've actually sorry.
Go ahead, Colin.
I've used Photo Rec from Test Disk to recover photos and stuff because I have blown away my personal stuff twice and have to recover.
In fact, I have to do one.
You have to do one?
Mistakenly, yeah. I the other week
oh no.
Wasn't paying attention and I blew it away when I was trying to add Ventoid to a USB stick.
Yeah, man, I'll join the idiots club because I did it this week myself.
I once deleted completely finished paper for school. So basically,
Oh, no.
I just finished it. I
Oh.
saved it to the USB, and I don't know what I was doing. I just pressed delete, and then I don't know. Automatically, I went and I emptied the trash, and then I was like, right away after I emptied the trash, I was like, what you just did? And well, after 2 hours of work and using random pieces of software, I got it back.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing. I'm so glad you got your paper back. My heart just sank for you, and I was
Yeah,
in
me too.
panic, even though this was a past paper. I'm so glad
It's like
you got it back.
I started getting like white hot sweats because I've done things like that.
Paper.
Well, it wasn't that big. It was 10 pages, but it was still 2 hours of
enough.
work.
Oh my
That's-
gosh.
Yeah.
It was
That's
still
still
2
enough to make you
hours of
wanna-
work, and basically it was 11 p.m.
Oh,
I
the day
blew away an
before
entire
I was supposed to
drive
take it to
one time.
school.
Yeah.
I blew away an entire drive one time using GNOME disks.
Nice.
Just because I didn't realize I was on that partition. And I was trying to set up another disk to add that disk in there. I was on my system drive, and and from then on,
I'll tell you
I
what.
always use the command line.
GNOME Disk is a great, is a really great app. But what it should do is it should prompt you to select something rather than have something pre-selected when it opens.
I agree.
Yeah, it should ask you which disk you want to work on rather, because I think it selects by default the top one. And on occasions I haven't taken notice of that, and didn't realize you might have a USB connected or something. I don't have USBs anywhere near my computer when I'm writing ISOs. Is that what you did, Steve?
The answer to everyone is don't bother with all the software packages. Just use DD.
Right. That can't go wrong at all.
Actually, DD is very, very helpful and very handy. CPIO is also still pretty relevant, but I mean, you got to know a little bit about the arcane on that one, just because you got to direct the output and everything else. If you don't, then all you get is a screen full of garbage, and you're like, well, where'd my backup go?
DD is very scary. I always try to avoid using it as much as possible because I think one day it's going to get me. But I try to use Etcher instead just because I don't want to risk it. And when I update Ventoy, I'm always thinking, oh, I got to make sure that I'm not getting something else.
So I have a policy now. If I have to do something like write to a disk and I'm using DD or really any software now, I go to a different computer that doesn't have any drives attached to it, and I'll move like the USB drive that has it on there over. I'll do a D message to make sure it's like I know what it is. Then I'll plug in the drive so I know what it is, because I have it was a few years ago. It was the last time I really messed up. I was gonna say something else, but that was probably inappropriate. And yeah. So now I'm very.
Yeah.
It's almost a ritual now for me.
LSBLK is also a command that.
Yep, that's a good one.
Saved me more than once.
Yep, that's a very good one. So there's I'm probably gonna mess up his name, but has anyone watched the Linux App Summit? Garundo in the chat. Did anybody watch this? I have not. I've actually not been online very much this week at all. So normally I only live online, but there you go. Has anybody watched that?
I did not. I have not.
No.
I was hoping somebody did. Maybe like Vince. Vince seems to know everything. He's got his pulse on everything. He used to use it against you, but
no, I have not seen it. That is all.
Okay. That is all.
This is the way.
That's right. Well, I guess that answers that. I kind of wish I would have at least watched something. I don't know. I don't know. I was just asked if everyone had seen that. Garundu, he asked if anyone had seen that. So
Yeah, it's on you, Garundanu, to tell us about it.
so
Go
maybe
for
he,
it.
maybe he was there. Maybe he's the organizer and we just don't know it. Or one of the organizers. So cool. I'm gonna put the link in the chat because I see that there's somebody who's interested in joining Prophetic, and I noticed that this computer seems to really chug along a little bit whenever I go live. But time for a better computer. Anyway, there we go. So what else is on the list of things here to talk about? Oh, so unfortunately Wendy left, but on the next episode of DLN Extend, we talked about free software or open source software. Does anybody have any opinions on that? Like what is it? What is the difference? What do you think of that? Do you think there's a convolute? The names are the term is convoluted. Like when you hear free software or open source software, what are your thoughts that come to that? Like specifically, I'll give you an example. So free software I don't have to pay for. Open source software that is source code, which is open, which could be free or not. Like free as in lunch or not. So I don't know if any of you have like any thoughts or on that subject matter or not. Like, do you have a problem with non-open source software?
Well, free software, or more specifically, freedom software, is a programming philosophy, while open source software is a programming paradigm.
Okay.
Those are the main differences between it. Otherwise, inside, when I go inside, it's pretty similar. The main tenets are that the source code is available, but they are basically two things that at the end of the day mean similar, except one is a philosophy and goes really hard into the freedom of it all, while open source software is more pragmatic approach to it, and it's just a programming paradigm where you put your software and its source code available to everyone.
So do you have any issues with running non-free or non-open source software?
No,
on your computer.
Not.
Does anybody here have any issues with that?
Not really.
No.
I mean, I think that if someone comes up with a package or a software that is very useful and designed very well, the best way to be compensated for that is to actually charge it. Now, if they have, I'd like to be able to get to the source code to learn from it, and but not to necessarily violate any copyright or anything like that. As far as keeping things open and free, even freedom. I mean, I don't know. I really don't know how the like Conical and Ubuntu or let's see, Conical. Ubuntu is Conical. Never mind.
Yes.
But I don't know how they're staying afloat without charging for the OS, even like $10 or whatever.
Basically, what they're doing is basically hoping for donations and selling support contracts to companies. That's how you mainly survive with open source software if it is installable on your customer systems. If it is something like, I don't know, a service, then yeah, you can offer it, you can install it and support it yourself, or we can have it in our cloud, and then you pay us for the use of it. Those are the two main ways how you make money from open source software.
We could also have embedded advertising too, I suppose.
Well, yeah,
which
but
that's a possibility.
But then a lot of people would take pitchforks and say, I don't want advertisement on my computer.
Right.
And then you're in that circle of magic.
I'm I'm not sure how I feel about it. I guess if I have the option of turning it off, you know, I sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It really depends on like if I pay, like if I sponsor the project, then I don't really want to see advertising. But if I'm not sponsoring the project and maybe only use it intermittently, I'm okay with the advertising. Say, you know, if you get a couple cents off me, you know, I got a few hours of use out of this. If you can make some money off of it, you know, thank you for your time. Hopefully, that's kind of how I feel about it. You know, I'm not opposed to advertising. I'm opposed to intrusive and naughty advertising practices. So that's more
my question is it possible to do everything you want to do with free software? I mean, when you run, if you run Debian, it's, you know, a lot of people have trouble getting their heads around Debian because it's very hard to get everything in there as opposed to Ubuntu because they've got all the non-free stuff in there out of the box, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Here's
is
another
it
question.
Possible to do? Okay.
Finish the thought first. Is it?
No, that's my question. Is it possible to do everything you want with completely free software? That's my question. Because might find that you cannot.
Let me ask this. Yeah. I'm gonna answer your question with a question. Is it possible to do everything you want without using any free software?
Probably.
I don't think so. I think you're harder pressed to avoid free software than you are to avoid paid software.
Well,
yeah, for most people, yes, because not a lot of people can afford some of the crazy prices for these fancy programs.
I mean,
and stuff.
Even if you tried, you visit a website, there's some open source software in that stack that's running that website, very likely. Like, could you actually avoid using free software? I'm not saying I'm not sidestepping your question because that's a good question.
Your home router is probably running free software.
Probably.
Well, directly you yourself using it consciously, yes, but there are unconscious things we do not know about, like servers, like appliances. Those should not be considered in this question because you do not have any control over it. And even then, a lot of the software that you see in internet isn't actually free, it's open source. And there is that distinction again between what is what and all that.
Right, but
consciously you can easily avoid free software, but you can a lot harder consciously avoid proprietary software.
I'm actually going to argue the opposite.
You will need to run some drivers.
I think it's more likely. I think it's easier to avoid paid for software. It's still going to be there, like probably in some sort of like firmware. There's some stuff, but I think for like consciously, like if you go back to like the conscious usage, I don't have anything on. All right, there's nothing that I use regularly on this computer that is. I cannot access the source code except for like the Intel engine and maybe some other firmware and BIOS stuff. But as far as like, but I'm saying, but as far as consciously, like conscious choices, I have to actually I seek out paid for or closed source software.
Well,
so
on my laptop, I could consciously decide to not use NVIDIA graphics card because I have that option. I could run Intel graphics card, but then I wouldn't be able to run a second screen because it is directly to NVIDIA graphics card. So I have to use it. So again, I am tied to the proprietary NVIDIA driver.
Okay. So I'm not using NVIDIA, but
yes.
Go ahead.
Well, if you use NVIDIA Optimus and like you install any Ubuntu based distro now,
yes,
it works out of the box, no problem.
Yeah, because they have certain agreements.
Yeah, but try with Debian. I cannot get Optimus working with Debian. It's an absolute nightmare. I just give up because it's impossible.
You can get it to run in the same manner you would get it to run on Arch, but it is a convoluted process. It can take quite a bit.
I haven't achieved it yet. On on Arch or Debian, really, to be honest. It's as soon as you put an NVIDIA.conf file on Optimus, it won't start. You'll get a black screen for sure. Right?
I did get it running on Arch quite a couple of times, and then many times I didn't.
Going on beyond the driver aspect, software suites, let's say like Office, people are just so ingrained using Microsoft Office, the fonts, the third-party software that's available for that, stuff like that. You try to get someone to go over to LibreOffice, suddenly it seems like they're taking a step back. The fonts aren't there, the ribbons aren't there. You can set it up, but it's not. It still doesn't look the same, doesn't feel the same. And so, I mean, even OpenOffice, you know, the three Office suite, given anyone general user, let's say, given a choice of any of those three Office suites, are probably going to go with Microsoft Office.
Yeah.
I love using OpenOffice.
You should actually use LibreOffice now because OpenOffice is not really maintained very much anymore. It's the same thing.
No,
it's a
it
fork of it. Or FreeOffice is another good one. WPS Office, I think it's another one. WPS, something like that. That's all right. You can make LibreOffice. Somebody can, I'm sure. LibreOffice. So a friend of mine recently retired, and he got a new computer for him, or maybe his business, maybe where he worked, gave him a computer on his way out the door, something like that. Maybe that's the thing that they do now. And his Windows 365 or whatever, Office 365 subscription went out, and he didn't want to pay like $5 a month. And so someone told him about LibreOffice, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, this is great! I love it! It's awesome! It's free!" And I go, "That's one step closer to using Linux." So, but yeah, so there's, I'll put, let's see if I can put, so there's LibreOffice. I have to check, you know, I do have a comparison, I think, that I did once upon a time, on my website, which I'll plug it. Why not? But,
just back on the free versus open and proprietary little debate we're having, can someone just clear something up for me? Like, if you just want to simply watch a video, say on YouTube, or listen to music, aren't you pretty much required to have proprietary codecs installed?
Yes. In many cases, yes, because especially YouTube is in much of the videos are encoded in, I believe it is proprietary codec, or the transfer itself is proprietary codec.
So if I'm not mistaken, I have actually gotten YouTube videos playing fairly recently, actually, on a system without the proprietary media codecs installed, like without the Ubuntu restricted extras, restricted add-ons packages. But if I'm not mistaken, I think there might be some like extremely basic like X264 codec built into Firefox, and I think probably Chrome as well.
So the other thing is, sorry to interrupt you, back when Google, because remember, Google bought the company that was doing VP8 and eventually created WebM, and that's an open source codec, and Google was trying to push that for a while. So a good chunk of videos on YouTube are encoded in WebM. So if you don't have H.264 codecs installed, it will default to WebM. So unless it's either a really, really old video or something that might be content restricted, you're likely going to get that in WebM.
Except for live stream. Live stream just H.264.
Going back to what you said about listening to music, well, MP3s are no longer copyrighted. So the technology, you can listen to it because it's we're not a copyright.
It's MP4. MP4 is or X264 is the proper name for the codec.
No, but I'm just saying, just listening to music. He's like listening to music or watching YouTube. So you don't need it to just listen to music. YouTube's a whole different thing, though.
Yeah.
But is it open source software though now, or is it free software, as in freedom, or what? How were you? Where's it classified? Do we know? I haven't checked, but I remember that they did that patent or the whatever on that.
Yeah, right now. So you can just you can use it freely. You don't need a license for that anymore.
No.
Yeah.
Technically, you don't need a license.
For MP3s?
Yeah.
MP3 you don't need a license.
MP3s are now public. MP3s are now public domain. That was actually fairly recent. It used to be that when you
2017, I think.
installed the restricted extras and add-ons, it pulled down a package called something Fluendo, and it actually made MP3s sound terrible on Ubuntu. And
That's correct.
You had to manually remove that package. Now that package isn't a dependency; it's a suggestion, so it doesn't get pulled in by default. And by default, it now sounds much better, and the built-in MP3 open source codec works way better.
So to make a distinction here, codecs, when you're dealing with codecs, you're dealing with patents and not copyright.
Yeah.
And patents are actually limited to what, 25, 30 years? So those will actually expire. That's why the MP3 patents expired and are now just available in practically any Linux distribution by default. And at some point, some of the MP4 early H.264 patents are probably going to start to expire in the coming decade and a half. So eventually those are going to be free of issues, but the next codec that's going to come up will still have those patents that exist.
Well, what about the content though? Is still, I mean, you still have to worry about
content's copyrighted.
Content has
but the codec,
no correlation with that.
But the codec itself is going to be patented technology, so the patent has a time limit and will expire.
Basically, what is H.264 is basically how the video is made into a file. That the technology or process of making it into a file is behind numerous number of patents, and those expire after some time.
Mm-hmm.
So copyright is the life of the author plus 75 years.
That's copyright, but that doesn't apply to this. That
Patents
applies to the
like,
content.
Yeah, patents are like 25 to 30 years, I think, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, I don't know what those are. I don't know, but you can renew patents though too. I do know that. You have that as an option for whoever owns the patent.
Let me see. I see something here.
So I remember somebody said that if the copyright wasn't extended like back in the 90s, we would have public domain movies from the 60s right now.
Yeah.
Well, it also depends on who's doing the performance, because let's say like the Boston Pops performing a piece from Mozart or Gershwin or something like that, that particular performance is copyrighted as well.
Yeah. So. With music specifically, you have two copyright licenses you have to worry about. First one is the license of the sheet music. So basically, who wrote the sheet music? Let's say Mozart or someone like that. That one, 75 years after his death, it goes into public domain. Then after that, if you let's say you, Chris, made a video of yourself playing that song, then that song specific rendition of the song would have 75 years after that the copyright.
Right.
So this is where a lot of the automated copyright strike bots end up being very problematic, because you'll have companies that register more recent performances of classical pieces into these systems, and then all of a sudden I follow a number of pianists on Twitch and YouTube, and they might end up getting struck on their YouTube videos because they themselves performed a piece where the composition was public domain, but because of course it was similar instruments, all of a sudden the bot thinks that, oh, they must have stolen it, even though that's not the case.
That is why you have manual appeal, but then of course humans who do those manual appeals aren't perfect, and you get what you get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, interesting how we got on that from open source versus
Well, it's kind
It's all
of
intertwined.
related.
It's all connected.
It's intertwined, yeah. But
So to come back to that, Colin, did you feel like that question was adequately explored or not so much?
No, that question confused me big time.
Oh. So I guess in the end, I don't think you can totally avoid non-open source software.
True.
But I
don't
think
think so either.
I don't think you can completely avoid it, but I don't think you can completely avoid open source software either. And I'm not sure where I fall on that. I prefer open source always. I think it was Max Henney that said that, but I do prefer the open source software to closed source software, but I'm not going to not use a closed source software just because it's for ideological reasons. I mean,
well, See, when I came to Linux, I was just disgruntled with the way Windows work because you're constantly reinstalling because it slows down, and the computers, back in the day probably couldn't handle the way Windows work. But when I discovered Linux and its fast updates and fast boot times and all that, it was just amazing. But I didn't even consider or even know the difference between proprietary and open source software at that time, right? Because I didn't start using computers till I was 35 or something like that. So I didn't really know what all the differences were. So for me, I don't really worry about that too much. I just, whatever works for me, I'll use it, basically. It's not a conscious thing I really worry about, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't really worry about it either. I do try to avoid any like hardware that requires additional pain to get going. So personally, I avoid NVIDIA for the time being because I don't want to have to deal with NVIDIA again. And I realize it in many ways is measurably better performing hardware. But if it requires me to fiddle with it, I'm just not, I'm just not going to use it, I guess. So also I prefer using KVM or a QEMU over VirtualBox because there's less fiddling involved with KVM. I did actually use VirtualBox recently because I was having issues with some being able to access my local drive, and I was searching the webs and I couldn't find a good answer. But I could do it easily with VirtualBox. So
I made a video of me moving to KVM. Is it KVM?
KVM. Virt Manager. It's got like it's got like six or seven different names. It's all the same thing.
KVM that's right. Is the correct name of what you're talking about, because it's using QEMU to display and to virtualize, and KVM is the kernel level technology that does the hardware virtualization.
And Virt Manager is the interface you use to access all of it.
Yeah,
so
Virt Manager.
In the front end to libvirt, which then controls QEMU and KVM.
I love the names. That's great. Rolls off the tongue.
I went back to VirtualBox because VirtualBox does everything I need it to do. I just had a problem with Virt Manager and all that. It just doesn't have the flexibility the VirtualBox has. So, and I find it a lot easier.
It has a lot of flexibility.
I'm gonna beg to differ. I used VirtualBox for a long time. Every time we did a distro challenge, I was doing it in VirtualBox. I switched to Virt Manager because VirtualBox did not like the kernel I switched to. Big whoop-de-doo. And in doing that, I found it actually has a lot more flexibility than VirtualBox does. So, for instance, it can work with a bunch of different file types. It seems like it would be a lot easier to pass through a PCIe device. Have not tried that yet. It is not? Okay.
With VirtualBox.
Can you restore a snapshot from VirtualBox on Virt Manager?
Yeah.
If it's in the right file type, yes.
I'm not
sure
convert it
because you can convert it. I've done that. I migrated my Windows 7 build over to Virt Manager.
Mm-hmm. But I love Virt Manager. I actually have it running in the background right now because this entire time I've been doing testing on ProggerOS, And if I'm doing a virtual machines, that's what I'm using because I don't want to use VMware. And
Well,
VirtualBox refuses to run.
That.
I do
Well,
find
I
that.
was using.
Go ahead.
I was using Virt Manager, and I do testing with Windows 10 and all that, and I could not get a full screen with Windows 10 in UEFI mode. No matter what I did, I just could not get a full screen with Windows 10. In Legacy, yes. In UEFI, no.
Huh.
And
Strange.
And also, it actually takes over your disk as well, Virt Manager. And I couldn't use VirtualBox and Virt Manager. It seemed to be taken over the ISOs as well because it locks the ISOs, and you cannot use them. It's just it had a few annoying things for me that I just struggled with.
So you can only have one thing, if I'm not mistaken, you can only have one thing running in virtual. No, wait. I actually have had multiple virtual machines running simultaneously. There's some weird thing where you can only have one virtual machine running at a time.
One
virtualizer.
One virtualizer can run at the same time.
But there are ways that you can work around that and have multiple virtual machines running simultaneously at the same speed. The thing with Virt Manager not allowing anything else to access an ISO file, what it's doing is it's changing the permissions of the ISO file so that it's owned by Virt Manager. Now, if you're trying to, you still have the power to change permissions and delete it and all that. Just like if you're going to delete it and you're doing it for the command line, you got to use the -F flag on RM to be able to delete it, because otherwise it's either going to throw an error at you saying it can't delete it, or it'll say, are you sure you want to delete it? So you have to throw in that -F flag for force. But like, for instance, right now I could easily boot up two different virtual machines simultaneously on Virt Manager reading from the same ISO, and it would work perfectly fine because it's reading it as an ISO, so it's reading it as read-only media, not read-write. And as long as it's treating it as read-only, it's going to treat it perfectly fine, not a big deal. Because what it does is it loads it into RAM and does whatever changes it needs to in RAM and doesn't change anything on disk. So it's non-destructive in that way. It's a little bit weird and confusing, and if you get into the wrong situation, it can throw everything off. But there are ways that you can get it to do things simultaneously.
I didn't have any of these problems in VirtualBox, so I just went back to that. When you spend many hours trying to sort things out, you just say, had enough.
Right. Makes sense. So the problem that I had with Virt Manager also was that I would, like, when I was testing out Fedora, I changed the screen resolution to like be larger, and then it would go back to like 800 by 600 or something crazy like that. And I changed it again, and it would go out and then back. So I had to change the video model to VGA because the is the QXL or whatever, or Virt IO just acts all wonky, and so I just changed that, and then I was good to go.
Sometimes that happens. Yeah, sometimes that happens.
I had the same issue with Windows 10 on Virtual Machine. It would also do that, so I had to change to VGA, and then it worked fine. But like VirtualBox basically just works. As long as the kernel driver loads, you're good to go. It's when the kernel driver decides not to load because you change kernels that you get have a bad day, as it were. So.
Yeah, but that's easy. I think there's a script, a command you can run to easily change that, isn't it? To just update the kernel.
You can easily run it, but just because that script is the same script that VirtualBox runs itself when it goes to build the DKMS modules. So you're basically just redoing that whole step of the installation. It doesn't actually help anything. So when you're using a non-standard kernel like I do, it doesn't help. No matter how many times you run that script, it's not going to work. It's entirely something to do with the way they make their DKMS module and the kernel, and whether or not that DKMS module decides it likes that kernel or not. Because, for instance, the NVIDIA drivers, if you try to install it on an RC kernel, so I think right now they're working on 5.13, so it's probably like 5.13 RC2 or 3. if you tried to install the NVIDIA drivers on that, it would just throw errors all over the place and wouldn't work. And what NVIDIA has to do is actually go in and make changes. And that's why you get an update to the NVIDIA driver to allow that.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Yeah.
Well, most of the time, it's not an issue on Tumbleweed when they change kernels because the whole build service triggers everything to be rebuilt. Well, triggers the things that need to be rebuilt. So it's usually not a problem on Tumbleweed. I had to throw in the OpenSUSE talk in there just whenever I can do that. I'll do that. So, well, great. That's so free versus open source. I think it's an interesting discussion. I think that's well, we talk about it on a DLN, the next DLN Extend. It comes out on Tuesday, I think, or Wednesday. I can't remember when they come out because I don't release it. So whenever it comes out, we talk about that further, and so we'll see if we make anybody mad over that. I don't know. I guess we do that sometimes.
It would be interesting to know how many people move over to Linux because it's free and open source, or the reasons why they move.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it would be interesting to know.
That's a good question. So everyone here except for Joe. This is how I'm going to slowly try and make him try it out. So what are your reasons that you moved to Linux? So we don't have a whole lot of time left, so I don't have too long on this. But for me, I was dissatisfied with how crashy Windows was. It drove me nuts. Wasn't happy. I went from the Amiga, which was quite stable, to Windows 98, which was not quite stable for me, and it just had problems. So when I had this opportunity to try out Linux, I liked it, and then I stuck. So, but for me, it was not so much the free part of it, because I actually paid for a box set. I didn't actually fully understand the whole how can they make money off open source software as I'm walking out of the store with a $70 box I paid for, or maybe it was 50. I can't remember. But anyway, so Eris, why did you go to Linux? Or why do you use Linux on a regular basis?
I wanted more customization, but the thing that really drove me over was the telemetry that started being included in Windows.
Okay. Yeah, it's like Windows XP, I think, is when they started telemetry, I believe. I could be wrong. But
way back. We just don't know it.
Yeah. Okay. Don't say that again, please. Thomas, what brought you over to play in the Linux sphere?
So I was actually kind of forced onto Linux. My first computer that was my own was a refurbished computer that was given to me by a partnership between a local nonprofit called Cramden Institute, which takes old computers, refurbishes them, and then gives them to school children in need, and Google. We had Google employees come into my school at the time and give us the computers that were refurbished by Cramden and teach us how to use them. And my computer was pre-installed with a Linux distribution called UberMix. I've seen UberMix in the wild once other time, maybe. But I stayed on Linux after that because I learned how configurable that was and how much control I have over my computer. And as I was learning about that, I also learned how it's also safer because I don't get viruses and all the other stuff. I go into a lot more detail about this with my interview with Jason Evangelo on Linux for Everyone, so I'm not going to bore everyone, but that's generally why.
Well, so it's interesting that it was actually you were not forced, but you I guess it presented itself to you, and that's when you started using it. I think that's great. So, Big Pod, what brought you to using Linux and open source software?
The customization and the fact that it was Linux, and I wanted to learn Linux for servers. So I decided once I saw one of my professors running his laptop, that maybe I should run it on my system. So I learned Linux properly, so I can use it on servers. That were my main reasons.
So actually, for practical purposes,
Yeah.
not for any ideological reasons. That's interesting. Chris, what brought you over to the Linux world?
Well, I was always pretty much a Microsoft person. I mean, to the point where I got certifications in NT4 in 2000, and then, oh gosh, it was probably about 1994. A friend of mine in college was showing me that this guy had come up with a Unix-like kernel that'll run on a PC. And I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And then a couple years later, I said, I want to check that out. And then that was about the time that ME hit. And when I saw what they're doing with ME, I was like, yeah, I don't want to be involved with that anymore. So I started playing around with Linux, picked up a version of Ubuntu and Fedora, and found that I liked Fedora a little bit more because it was more Windows-like, not as Mac-like. And then when in my degree we were doing a system administration, they taught us on Fedora Core 4, and that's when I really started loving the thing, and said, you know, I can actually go and build hardware or build control systems for hardware with this a lot better than I can do it having to deal with the abstraction layer with Windows and going through that. I remember the old days in DOS when you had your serial ports and your parallel ports, and how easy it was to get stuff in and out of that out of the system, and not have to go through the operating system really to access the hardware that you might want to build or add to. And so I stuck with Linux, but I mean, because my job, my profession is supporting the desktop, and so I've learned OS 10 and Windows, Windows XP, Windows 7, Windows 10. Windows 7 I like the best out of those three, but I still my love for being able to control the hardware is there.
So for you, it's a control issue. Is what it boils down to. You have a control issue. Okay.
Much so,
all right.
yes.
So you use Linux because of control issue. Got it. No, that makes sense. That's actually a practical reason because you wanted to do. You had actual practical. You had a reason for using it. So that's good.
Yeah.
So Jinda, what brought you over to the Linux world?
I'll say basically Windows is constantly wanting to update and need all this maintenance. And when I wanted to try something like make a server or something like that, it was either non-doable, hard to do, and Linux was just so much easier to maintain. And when it updated quick and efficiently, or I didn't have to update, it wasn't forced. I would say those kinds of things.
Okay. So also for practical reasons, not for ideological. That's interesting. So was the term open source, was that ever like a reason? Oh, open source. Well, I'm going to go ahead and use that. Was that ever a thing that came to your mind?
Never even thought of it. I mean, literally, never even crossed my mind. I just wanted something that I knew was going to work, and I wanted to be able to spend my time doing what I want to do, not watching something try to update and reboot 6 times.
Okay, makes sense. Time. It was the time loss basically. So Jason, I know you use everything.
Yep, literally everything. And the main reason that I joined the Linux community and got into messing around with Linux was educational reasons. I just like to learn. Hence the reason that I'm doing that. It's the CCNA back there. I just want to learn. I do use everything. I have Windows. I have Macs. I have Windows Server. I have, 4 or 5 different versions of Linux running. So I mean, I just did it for educational purpose. Nothing to do with open source. Nothing to do with, I want to get away from Windows or anything like that because I still use Windows every day for work, and I do have Windows machines here in my room. But it's mostly just because I wanted to learn. Just plain and simple. I wanted to know how it worked, so I jumped into it and met you guys and played around.
Here we
with
are.
Pretty much everything.
So now, do you continue to use it for the people, or is there like a practical, like, you do this on Linux because a reason? Because for education, you want to learn something new, but is there something else that keeps you,
At this point, I mean, really, Linux. The only reason I still pretty much use Linux on a daily basis is for there's nothing that I use it in strictly for. I use pretty much like every throughout the day. I use all my different systems basically. But most part, it's like I was messing around with like the CCNA stuff. I was messing around with Linux networking. I was messing around with just my Linux machines, and then I messed around with getting them all connected to the servers and all that kind of stuff. I basically broke it, just educational purposes still. I don't use one system on a daily as a main driver. I basically I'm always tinkering with something, breaking something purposely to try to see if I can fix it. And sometimes I have to, rinse and repeat because I broke it too good. But that's how you learn. At least that's how I learn, just to do it.
Right. That's cool. Well, I like it. It's good. It's good reasoning. So Joe, why aren't you using Linux? No, I'm not going to berate you. You can say whatever you want. Uh-oh, did he not hear me? He must have already muted me. Joe, you there, Joe?
He's muted in Zoom.
My bad. Sorry.
Yeah.
What
So why? The question is, why are you not using Linux? And you don't have to answer that at all. It's all good, man. I think I've been bothering you about it for like the last 15 years. I think.
That's because everyone else is doing it and I haven't done it yet. No. I just haven't got around to using it very much, or putting the time to look into it.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I just wanted to poke the bear a little bit on that one because I know you. So that was it. One day you'll try it again, maybe. Peter, what brought you to Linux and why do you?
Like you, I came from a multitude of systems. A lot of 80s 8-bit computers. College, I used a VAX. That was VMS. That was a great system. I had an Amiga 1200, Amiga CDTV. So I grew up with all different systems. I only bought a Windows PC to go online. And that was back in 97. And we know where that landed. Me landed in America. So I used Windows for quite a while. I still have my Amiga on the side. And then one day I said, I know about this Linux thing. I want to know more about it. So I got a copy of Knoppix, the live CD, used it, loved it, and found Mint, loved it, used it for a long time. But the absolute highlight is finding Solus and using it for the last 4.5 years. And why nobody else will use it, I don't know.
Maybe they just built it for you.
They did.
Specifically.
Maybe. Ike did say that one time. He made it for me.
That's cool.
Use Solus.
Yeah, I haven't used Solus in a while. I guess just hasn't come up for me. So Colin, what brought you to Linux? Was it you were 35 when you started using computers, or Linux?
No, it was it was. I was about 35, I think, when I just started using computers. I think so. Probably a late age, I suppose. But like I said before, it was just the constant updates of Windows and the slowing down. And back in the day, you would sit there and wait for about 5 minutes for Windows to boot. It was just painful to watch. And as soon as I tried a Linux distro, it won me straight away. It just booted fast, updated quick, and but the biggest thing with Linux is it costs you time, right? Time to learn, time to figure out, and if you're willing to jump through those hoops, I think it's really, really worthwhile. So,
it's cool. Yeah, I similar for me as well on the speed. I did notice that. Tyler, if you're still there, I know your cat is, but are you still there?
Well, yeah, I am. So to kind of go back, piggyback off that time comment. So I first came across Linux. It was more of a curiosity. I was using Windows XP at the time, and I was curious. Okay, it's like, well, I don't have any Apple hardware, so I can't play with Mac OS. Like, oh, there's this Linux thing. I can tinker around with it. And again, just 2006. I was 14, so the first release I played with was Ubuntu 6.06, and then 6.10. I had a lot of time on my hands back then, so I just had a lot of time to play with and learn Linux. And it just grew on me, and then I got involved in the community, and it just stuck with it ever since.
That's cool. Yeah, I think the community definitely is a drawing factor, because I think Linux people are some of the nicest people. Maybe not the Arch people, but everyone else. So, Adam, I don't know if you're still there. Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Are you still using Linux, or are you all Stadia all the time now?
Yeah, sure. We'll go with. I use Linux at work, but not at home.
Yeah. Well, you got to use whatever works for you. Yeah, you and Joe are in good company. Steve, you said I think you're using like Pop. Are you using Pop now, or are you still Peppermint, or you're a Poppy Peppermint, or what's
on my main desktop? Although I have IC Dock now, so I have Peppermint, Pop. I think right now Manjaro Gnome.
Oh.
But I got Pop on my laptop here. I can't say I got into it for any, privacy reasons or that. My wife was given a little Asus netbook. XP had expired, the year before. And she's like, we didn't have anything. I had a tablet. We just had the one computer, and my son had his laptop. And, she's, can we do anything with this? And I go, well, I'll check it out. I know there's something out there. And started my venture. I think the first thing that I installed was like some kind of odd version of Android for a PC, which absolutely was, didn't barely work.
Oh.
And then ran into, I was doing a search, and I think Peppermint 5 was one of the first ones that I installed. And I think I did a PC Linux OS build and Linux Lite and Ubuntu, and just something that kept going back to Peppermint. But I liked it kind of so much that I was already dual booting Windows 7 and Windows 10 on the main computer. So I threw Peppermint. By that time, it was Peppermint 7 I threw on there, and I was triple booting, all on different hard drives. I had 3 hard drives in there, but I stuck with it, and I barely, outside of my wife's little Asus Vivio book, or helping him on his laptop. Outside of work, I don't go on a Windows computer at all for anything. I just enjoy it, and ran into the beautiful people that are here and over in Telegram and that.
Yeah, and stuck around, and then started streaming, and I talk about it with coffee.
Yeah.
Now, have you ever spilled coffee on your computer?
Came close.
Okay.
Came close.
All right. So you did have a brush with letting the blue smoke out.
Yeah.
That's cool. All right. Well, it is that time. So we did kind of just went around on the horn here on that. Let's go. Last word from everybody. Go ahead, Eris. If you want to say a word or phrase.
Thank you very much, Nate, for hosting again and keeping this going. And thank you, everybody, for showing up today. See you next week.
And thank you for helping out today, Eris. Appreciate it. Thomas.
No
Thomas, last word, bud.
Well, thank you again for having Biddle again this week. I won't be on next week.
For shame.
Oh, now I remember. The reason I'm not going to be on next week is because next week I am having a game night for the Draugr OS community. So anyone in Linux is welcome. Even Joe, even though he doesn't use Linux. So yeah, if you want to come and hang out, feel free. The latest blog post up on draugeros.org. At the very bottom, I talk about a couple of the games we're probably going to play and where you can get them. The 2 games that I know we're going to play right now are both free to play and run natively on Linux. And one of them is also open source. And then we're also going to be using Amolith's Mumble server. And I also link to instructions on how to install and hook up to that Mumble server. So if you want to join, feel free. Yeah, have a good one.
Well, thank you very much. And make sure you share that in the Telegram with people, because if people, they don't have to participate in BDL every week. I mean, we're just chatting. So, make sure that you share what you're doing as well. I don't care if it conflicts. So we're a community, You don't always have to show up. Big Pod. Last word.
Thanks for having me, and shameless plug. This week I'm dropping another video.
Good.
So,
Make sure you share that in the BDL Telegram when you do a video, when you drop a new video. Make sure you share it so that people can see it.
we'll try
Chris.
to remember that.
Yep. Good. Please do. Thanks for being here. Chris.
Oh, we didn't get to the subject I brought up in Telegram tonight, but that's all right. We can bring it up next week.
I will carry it over to the next week's for sure.
Much appreciated. Other than that, I'm glad you got this starting back up. It's been great talking with you guys, and I think we had probably one of the best conversations tonight. So,
well, excellent. I'm really glad you came here, and then we could chat away. Jinda.
Thank you so much, Nate, and everybody for being with me tonight and putting up with me. And I'll see you guys hopefully next week.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thanks for being here. Jason.
Well, again, thank you, Nate, and I guess Eris tonight as well, since he helped out as well, getting this together so that we can all get together and have a nice little chat about, Linux, technology, keyboards, whatever the case may be. We went on a plethora of topics tonight. It was definitely great to, just to hang out with you guys and, get this community rolling again. You guys have yourselves a great night, and see you next week.
Thank you very much. Joe, our
Present.
one of yes. Last word if you want.
Okay. Yeah. I'm a cheapskate when it comes to computer mice, and so can you. And also, shameless plug, episode 15 of my YouTube thing is coming probably next month.
Excellent.
Sometime.
Next is in June or May?
Yeah.
I have to wait 2 weeks? Come on, Joe.
Well,
what else you got going on?
I just started writing it.
Oh, okay. Well, best hurry up. I'm not sure. I'm sure you don't have a life outside of gaming, right?
I do a little thing Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5.
I got you.
But...
All right. Well, whenever it comes out, make sure you share with the class. Thanks for being
absolutely.
here, Peter.
Thank you for having me.
I am so glad BDL's back. This truly is a highlight of the week. I love this community. I love being here. I love the fellowship together. And by the way, this is my second lug of today, because I crashed Tyler's lug as well this afternoon.
Yeah, I feel bad. I didn't know about that until it was too late. So, what can you do? But thanks for being here, Peter. I appreciate your input on things, and also as someone who also used the Amiga, you know about good computers. So thank you, Colin. Last word.
Yeah, thanks for hosting this, Nate. Doing a great job there, mate. And Eris for helping out as well. So, great conversations tonight. Everyone have a great week, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you. Really glad you could be here. Tyler. Ooh, look at that fancy slide action. Whatever you had going on there. That's
transitions.
Man, look at that.
OBS.
Yeah.
Ooh. So
sweet.
This is my first week actually back attending BDL. Thank you for bringing this back. And as Peter mentioned, and I'm going to use this to kind of transition into a shameless plug, I recently started streaming on Twitch, just random streams. I'm testing stuff on laptops, put it into my capture card. But today I decided to do a live stream of my monthly Linux user group meeting, and that actually went really well. The streams where I'm a little solo, if people are in chat, chatting up, that would make things go by a lot quicker. And it's caffeinated Linux on Twitch.
Cool. So make sure I think you did share that in the BDL Telegram, I believe.
Yes, I did share that in the Telegram group earlier when I was live.
Yeah, make sure you do that again when you ever go live. Just make sure you share that Telegram group so we can all, if people can participate, that they have the opportunity to say no. You don't say no for them, I guess is what I'm saying. That's an old sales thing. So, oh, look at that! And got raining.
That's
awesome. Oh yes, the Streamlabs overlay is still on.
There we go.
Stream Elements, but
so I guess you got something broken on your computer there. I
Gotta
see.
follow.
Yep. Adam.
Thanks for hosting this stuff, Nate, and everybody who came here. It's a good time. It's good to see you all. It's nice to try to be somewhat social. So,
Yeah, it's good for you,
times.
I think. Yeah.
I
Well, I
think so.
appreciate you showing up, and you're not as chatty as normal, but that's okay. Glad you could just kind of hang out.
Lately. It's all good.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being here nonetheless. And then the least
to be
punchable face on the internet, Steve. Last word.
Oh, you're too sweet, Nate. You're too sweet. So I'll do a little plug in.
Absolutely,
see you guys
please do.
maybe in about 11 hours on the Sunday 11. It's Coffee Clutch. So coffee and Linux does go together, right, Tyler?
It does.
Yep.
It's a beautiful combination.
So thanks, Nate, and everybody for joining tonight.
Yeah, I appreciate you being here, Steve. It's good to have you. I'll catch you for at least part of the morning tomorrow. So
Okay.
So
I'll look forward.
I'll troll you then. All right, and I want to thank everyone for showing up, whether you were in the YouTube stream or on the Zoom chat. I also want to thank Rocco for starting the BDLL community, Eric once again for the use of a Zoom account because I'm too cheap to buy one of my own, and everyone involved in making the Linux and open source tools possible for us to not only have this conversation but also to have fun and enjoy our technology. Linux truly puts personal back into personal computer. See yous.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Later.